Go. Hi everyone, Vernita here. Welcome to the Get It Done Incubator Experience Live. This is Strategy Day. I am filming. I said I wasn't going to put out the recording for the people that came, but I want to show bits and pieces of it for YouTube. So you'll see bits and pieces of what's taking place today. I am so excited. I've been talking about the Get It Done Incubator for couple of weeks now, and it is finally here. So if you're watching this on the replay, if by the time you watch it, and I don't have the page up again because I'm taking it down, then I'm gonna revamp some things and gear it up again. We're really talking about putting all the things that you've learned already from past programs, past coaches, and all of that, and having a laser focus time to execute. Get things done, having that self-help turn shelf-help. We're taking it off the digital shelf, off the hard drives, and actually putting things in place. In case you don't remember, I did an event probably almost a month ago. No, about 3 weeks, depending on when you watch this video. I was a coach for an event, and people were coming. It was about another program, but they were coming looking for their next steps. And I wasn't even trying to sell them. I was like, look, if you're going to get into the program, you're going to get into the program. If you have questions about it, we can deal with that. But they're like, I just really want to know my next steps, and that will determine if I'm going to get into this program or not. So I gave them some strategies. It was 35 people over 3 days. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is the thing I needed to do. Some people use that and joined the program. Other people were like, oh, I already have something to help me with that. Now I have a different perspective on what I can focus on. So let me go and take what you told me and go implement that. And so I was like, okay, didn't even think anything of it. But at the conclusion of that event, I was like, the key that I'll say about 80% of those people, they needed time to execute. A lot of times they get into these programs, and myself included, so I'll say we get into these programs like, okay, I'm gonna do the work, then we kind of fall off. And then it's like, well, I didn't get the return on my investment that I was looking for. But in reality, we didn't do the work, or we didn't have that same energy or that same support or that same vibe, to keep us motivated and on fire. Some people like to say, well, your why is not big enough, or you just didn't want it. And that's not always true. I always talk about school experiences, and you can have your opinion about school or whatever. But a lot of us, the reason why we were successful at moving forward and completing things is because we were in that type of environment. Focus, always checkpoints, always accountability, around like-minded people. And we knew the outcome we wanted. And it was a little bit of a competition thing, right? Not really competing with other people, but like, I want to be in last place. Let me get my assignments done. Let me go for what I want to go for. And you always have somebody there with you to support you if you got stuck. A lot of times we don't have that in the adult world. And when the coaching industry came along, I believe it started that way, but then it kind of fell off. So what I wanted to do was provide that atmosphere through elevated study halls, and we'll talk about that later. The people who are here, they will join me for an additional 11 weeks because we're starting today, but 11 weeks, well, 12 total, about elevated study halls, where we're not learning. If there's something you need to learn, we're going to do workshops about that. But this is set, focused time for you to actually get it done, implement, and execute. So brought you up to speed. You'll be seeing me, and I'll just be upfront. Some of the strategies, I will stop the video because this is what people pay for, right? If you get into the incubator, well, we're going to be closed for now, but if you got in, then, it's like, well, I came in because I want the secret sauce. But I still wanted to show people kind of the overall of what to expect if you, decide to join me next time. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to kind of sit a little bit. I'll be back and forth. If you see me looking over, I have my notes here, and want to make sure that, everything is quiet. All right. Yeah, let me put on silent. All right. So hi, everybody. Thank you all for allowing me to go through that intro. with the people. So good to see you here bright and early Saturday morning. I have been up since 4 a.m. Super excited about what is about to take place today. So before we really get started, remember you had some pre-work and some post-work, no, pre-work to do and work that you're going to do now. Okay, hold on. Yeah, let me pull that up to make sure I can follow along. It was sent to you in an email, but just in case, uh, yeah, do that. And then, bear with me. Thank you. All right, yes, that's what I wanted. All right, I wanted those two things up. All right, so thank you for giving me that moment. Like I thought I had everything set up until I realized that I was going to do this live. All right, so we are kicking off. You can still see me. Give me a wave. You can still hear me. All right. So what we're going to do, I gave you the introduction. And again, you see me looking over here. That's because I have my notes set up and everything like that. So before we get started, I want to make sure that you understand what is going to take place today. We may not go the full 8 hours. I just put that out there depending on how many people we're going to sign up. But we're going to do a little bit of an overview. I'm going to have you do some exercises, and then we're going to get into laser coaching for your specific strategy. So that is why it sounds like, oh my gosh, 8 hours, but I am going to take the time with each individual person based on what you sent me in the questionnaire, and then based on the questions or comments that you have today about your next step. So this is not in theory. This is not, thinking a year down the road, 6 months. No, this is what do you need to finish right now? What has been on your vision board, all of that in your notes, something that you've been putting off. We're going to talk about that. And that's why I had you to do that pre-work. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we're going to deep dive into some of the reasons why you may not have been taking action. And then, some of you have already shared with me programs that you've already invested in. I'm going to take that knowledge, I have to go refresh my notes, but I'm going to take that knowledge and show you like, hey, you might want to go back and look at this, or it's time for you to do something totally different or get a different set of skills that you need. So remember, we're going to talk about STEAM also. So we may, based on the number of people here, we may not go the full 8 hours, but we're going to go. If it's going to take us 8 hours with the number of people, then so be it. But I'm not going to like rush through so we can finish early. I want to make sure that you have all that you need for today, because after today's call, it is about actually doing the work. There are no more like pondering. You get the plan and then we're going to execute. All right. So before we get really, really deep down and started, I want you to clear out your mind. I want you to focus. And I know you're like, well, I'm already focused. It's this early in the morning. No, I want you to, now it's getting real. Like you've been seeing things, you've been putting things in place, you did the pre-work, but it's really getting real now. In those same thoughts of, I did this before, how is this going to be different? Or I sat down on myself, or maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Those are the things that are probably going to come up like in your mind, right? So I don't want you to think about that. I want you to come into these goals. I don't care if the goal has been on your board since 2020. This is a new day, a new perspective. And if you still feel strongly about getting it done, then we need to clear those blocks out and get you centered, okay? So everyone take a deep breath with me. Now I really want you to center and ground yourself. Okay. I want you to think about these three agreements. And if you agree, you put them in the chat, say, I agree, or you raise your virtual hand, or you can wave at me. Oh, almost slipped. Or you can wave at me and say that you agree. All right. So these are the three agreements. So the first thing you have to do, well, not have to, but the first thing I'm inviting you to do is understand that there is no judgment. There's no judgment of yourself. So we're not going backwards. There's no judgment over somebody else's ideas, thoughts, or questions, comments, concerns. And then there's no judgment of me based on how I respond to the person. If you have a different approach, then that's all well and good. We can talk about that as we move forward through the elevated study halls. But for today, there is no judgment of what takes place. So this is a safe space. There's no judgment. You can dream as big as you want. I want you to play full out. I want you, this is not the time to dim your light, dumb down your idea, not say what's truly in your heart because of fear for someone else looking at you for, saying something or judging you. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of you or a lot of us haven't executed to get things done, because we're not being true to ourselves because of fear of judgment, what somebody else is going to say or what we are going to say for ourselves. So that's why there's no judgment happening for ourselves or for each other. So if you agree, type I agree, raise your hand. Okay. So I think it's usually easy when people say, oh, I'm not going to judge others, but that one about judging yourself. So that is what you're going to agree to. So that carries on through the entire experience, not just for today. So remind yourself of that. All right. The second one is no repercussions. So while everything won't be said, like I won't put everything out on the video, but for those of us who are here live, I don't want you to hold a grudge or hold something against someone based on what they said or based on what I may have said to you. If I correct your language because I want you to think higher for yourself, I want you to think bigger for yourself, you don't hold that against me because it's all out of love. If someone else is asking you a question about something, then you don't automatically take offense to it. You don't hold something against them. If you sing them out in the world and you're like, oh, I didn't know you were going to be in here, and then they offer you some advice, you don't hold anything against them. There's no repercussion. Also, as we're moving forward today, if someone says something in the morning hour, you don't hold it against them in the afternoon. Okay. And then as we move forward through the session, so no repercussions of yourself, of, oh, I tried this before, I'm not going to do it again, or what are you trying to, do that again for? And then no repercussions of someone else. All right. So if you put I agree in the chat, raise your hand, wave at me, let me know that you agree to that one. All right. And then unconditional love. Unconditional love is for yourself. A lot of times we're so hard on ourselves. And a lot of times, and be honest, you wear like it's a badge of honor, like, oh gosh, I'm so hard on myself. And that's not cool. It's like, why would you even do that? Like, stop saying that you're hard on yourself. You can say that I don't trust myself in this moment, but why would you want to be hard on yourself? Love yourself unconditionally. You have faults, you mess up, you fall down, you get back up. If it was a little kid walking, I'm pretty sure you all have heard this example, then it's like the little kid stumbling and falling. And what if the little kid in their mind at the infant stage is like, I'm just so hard on myself. I'm just not even gonna, try it again because the last time, then it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you still crawling that too? Because I was just so hard on myself. Don't do that. Babies get up, fall, stumble, and everybody cheers when they stumble and fall and get back up. But we've lost that as adults. So we should love ourselves just like children love themselves, with that resiliency and bounce back, and just be like, look, I didn't do it this time. Oh, well, but I still love me. I'm still focusing. I'm still choosing my star player. and I love everything about me. Now, you can say I may not agree with every choice that I've made, but start with loving yourself first, regardless. And I think sometimes that's what keeps us from executing because we're so hard on ourselves. But what if we just easy on it? I'm just so easy on myself. I messed up, but it's all good. I live, to see another day, another moment, all of that good stuff. So I think it's easy to have unconditional love for someone else if they make a mistake, but make sure you have it for yourself as well. So if you agree, type, raise your hand, virtual hand. All right. All right. So now that we agree, and I'm going to have a seat here, I want you to, you can sit comfortably or you can stand. Some people like to ground themselves when they're standing. Either way, it's up to you. But make sure you're somewhere solid, you're firm, you're steady. And I know it's like, well, what difference does that make? If you go into something and you already feel secure, I believe, then that's how you're going to show up. It's almost like dress for success, how I present myself or how I show up, my attitude and my energy is going to give that off. And I worked in the school system, and I never liked when people just came to work looking like Saturday and it's Monday through Friday. That's just me. And when I taught my students, when they would go out and to do their practical experiences, we call it in the field, I was like, no, you need to look like you want a job, or not even just want a job. You want to make sure you feel good about yourself and how you present yourself. And some people can say, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It's matter more about you and your mental state. So I know we're in our homes and in our spaces, and I'm not telling you to go put on, a button down or anything formal like that, but set your environment, set your foundation, get your mind right. So whether you're standing grounded, seated grounded, sit up a little bit more. And then that's the foundation of how we're going to carry out through the day, and hopefully what we carry through the entire incubator experience. All right. So you've already taken your deep breath, you're grounded. Now I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to start from your head, and we're going to just go down and see in your head. Look at your eyes, your mouth, going down your throat. And just imagine a calm wave coming down all throughout your body, your throat, your chest, your shoulders, your stomach, down to your pelvic area, your legs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your toes. You know, if you don't have all of those areas, focus on the areas you do have. So this is not to leave anyone out. You have a body, focus on all the parts of your body that are with you. Okay. So once you do that and you're feeling good, if you feel any tense spot somewhere, just go ahead and just breathe into those areas and release those tense spots, because I don't want you to be tense through this process. I want you to be open. I want to make sure that the energy is flowing right, that your oxygen is flowing, and that you are in a good space. All right. So now I want you to call back into your energy. I know you're like, we just started, but in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking, some of these goals and things that you want to do might be triggering for you. But I want you to release that and just pull back those thoughts that you probably had during the week leading up to this moment. If you were at a job, go get your energy back from that job. So imagine with your eyes still closed that the energy is coming back from that job. If you had an argument with someone, just go back and pull your energy. If you read a text message or post or something and it made you feel a certain way, go back and pull all of that energy wherever you probably left your energy somewhere where it wasn't feeling good and you felt depleted. Go pull that back in. So take a moment, scan everywhere that you've been this week. Or if you were up super early like me, you probably spent a lot of energy somewhere. Go pull that back in. All right, I see some of you, your faces are looking lighter, you're looking less tense. I I can literally see some of those lights shining back in some of your faces. Yes. All right. So I learned that from a money mindset coach one time. So we don't realize how much energy we are putting out, and then we wonder why we're so tired. But we can literally reclaim our energy. It's all a mindset thing. And what we're going to do today, I need all of your energy focus. All right. So now that you are here, I can introduce myself again. I already said, hey, I'm Vernita. I'm a strategic, well, I call myself the Brilliant Solutionist. I won't get into all of that. You can go find it, why I do that. But the short version is because I really do focus on solutions. I'm not a problem solver. I focus on solutions to handle the problem so in the best way possible. Sometimes I see it better than you, or we come to an agreement of what would be best. But either way, we are getting that problem solved with the best solution possible. All right, so that's why I call myself the Brilliant Solutionist, not because I'm brilliant, but I can help bring the brilliance that's already inside of you out, because you technically are your own solution, but sometimes you don't see it because you're so close to it. All right, and your brilliance has been with you all your life, so sometimes you take it for granted. And I'm here as an outsider. It's like, no, did you consider that? Because you already have that in you. All right, and then parts of me, I am a certified transformational coach. I did get some training, especially touching on the areas of was it NLP? I never know how to say the full words, but really understanding how your body really reacts to situations. Because if it's not in your cells and your body is not going to agree with what you're about to do, then that's another reason why you're not executing, because it's something in your neurology inside your body and your cells that is literally holding you back. So I kind of help you work through and unblock that. And then strategists, life strategists, because I don't believe in focusing on one area of your life. All of the areas of your life impact your business, your career, but we tend to only focus on business and career when it could be family, contribution, creativity, something over in these other categories that are keeping us stuck over here. So that is a little bit about me. And let's see, another thing I want you to do before we get started. Oh, there's another thing before we jump into strategy. I want you to think about all the things that you can and cannot control. All right. When we're thinking about these goals, and some of this may be triggering for you because you're like, oh, this goal has been on my board since 2020. I know. But let's change that. Let's focus on, what can I control now in this situation that either I didn't control back then, or I didn't give myself permission to control that thing. I also focus on what I could not control. So if you're like, oh, the economy, oh, no one's going to buy this or do that because the economy, you can't control that. But can you control how you show up, how you present yourself, how consistent you are? Absolutely. So now that you're not judging yourself, now that you know that you're in a safe place, now that you have all of your energy, now I want you to make sure that your goal is in your mind, or the thing that you want to execute is in your mind. Go back and look at all the things that you could not control. I want you to release those. And then all the things that you could have, well, all the things that you can't control now, because we're not even going to say, well, I could have done, I should have. We're not going to do that. All the things that I can control now, take ownership, be honest, because we're not going to move forward. You're not going to be able to move forward if you're not honest. All right. So be honest with yourself. Like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that technology or setting the time to write or create that boundary. Yeah, I can do that. So make that circle tighter and tighter about the things you can control. And then so that makes you feel more empowered, like you're in control of the thing you want to execute. All right. So take a few minutes and think about that. All right, so the reason why I have you doing, so you're going to see me get up and down a lot. The reason why I have you doing these things before we get started, because I realize what some of you have written down and what I've experienced both personally and working with clients. A lot of times we have a tendency to run away from something. I was like, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want that. This is why I want this goal to be achieved. And it's like that doesn't really work. So you have to focus on what you do want, running towards what you do want instead of wanting the goal to run away from something. I want to write this book because I don't like how the people treated me, or I had this painful experience and I want to share with other people. It's like you're trying to run away from that trauma and that drama, but you think that's a motivator to get you to finish the book. But what if, what, I really want to share this message. I have some strategies about how I overcame something. I know it can help somebody else. Then for a lot of you, you're running towards that, and that could be the motivator that you need to keep going. So I'm not saying this for everyone, but in most cases, especially from what I read from some of you and what I've experienced, like I said, people are so busy running away from something instead of running towards something. Like, oh, I need a vacation because my job is so stressful, or the family, this, that, and the other. So I just need a vacation to get away. But what if it's like, I want a vacation to have some time for myself, to have some peace, to explore new things. So both of the end results is having a vacation, but one is running away from something and one is running towards something. So think about what you're running towards as it relates to what you need to get done. All right. The other thing, before we get into this, is I want to make sure that you are opening yourself up to a new perspective. Some of the things that I may share with you, you probably haven't heard before, or you probably have heard it. So don't roll your eyes. But if you've heard it and you haven't executed upon it, then that means either you didn't hear all of the information, part of your brain shut something down, or you just weren't ready to fully receive it. So keep an open mind, keep an open heart. And even if it's something you're like, I don't think that could work, just stay with it while we're here today in that space. And then as you start implementing in the elevated study halls, and then if something needs to change, great, but don't immediately shut anything down. And I say this with love, but if you've heard it before, you wouldn't be here, or you would be where you want to be. And the reason why I can say that is because I've been like that. Oh, here we go. I heard this before. Well, apparently not, because you would be where you want to be. And I'm not saying like you would be at the top of the thing, but you would be a few more steps ahead of where you are had you listened or changed your perspective. All right. So now we're going to jump into, I have an agenda, like, so we can stay on track, because I can ramble. All right. So here's the thing. Even though I did have you all do a goal setting activity, I don't want you to just look at this as, all right, we're going to set goals and then we're going to, do the work and somebody's going to hold me accountable. It's not about that. I want you to, yes, you had a goal, but now I want you to focus on intentions. And some people are like, well, what's the difference between attention and setting an intention and setting a goal? If you already know it, put it in the chat. And then I'm going to give you what I found are the three major differences. So go ahead and put it in the chat if you already know. Okay. Yes. So I'll read mine. Those of you can see the chat. Some of you are spot on. Some of you are like, I have no idea. I thought they were the same. And then some people are like, intentions, that sound like too woo-woo. But here's what I found, because I was like that too. So goals are focused on the future. Intentions are in the present moment. So what's probably keeping, you stuck is, oh, I want, the 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. That is great. That is something in the future. The intention, what am I doing these present moments to make sure that I am in alignment and doing the things that are aligned with that goal? Another one is goals are destinations or specific achievements. Intentions are lived each day independent of achieving the goal or destination. Same example of what I said. So goals being in the present, that's over there. Intentions being goals in the future, intentions being in the present moment. What am I feeling right now? goals being the end of something, the destination, or yes, I've achieved that. Intentions are, but what am I doing every day, regardless of the goal? Am I showing up, for example, like I already have the 100,000 subscribers, or that's just up here on my board and I'm not doing anything leading towards that? You may hear my dog in the background. He'll be okay. Then the other one, goals are external achievement. Intentions are about your relationship with yourself and others. This is why I had you do all of those like grounding things in the beginning. It's like, well, am I aligned to this? Does this the thing I want to do? Is it me? Can I really? Am I connected with it, or what? Why do I really want to accomplish this? And you may not be thinking about this, but I want you to think bigger. How can this impact the lives of someone else in a positive way? How can this be a contribution to someone else? And yes, it ties into your big why and all of that, but you still need something to carry you on throughout the day when you don't feel like it. It's like when you want 100,000 subscribers and you only got 100, and you're like, okay, I had this set up for December. You know what? Let me not focus on that, because that is a little discouraging. It's good to be ambitious, but that's a little discouraging if I keep focusing on that. But let me see what I can do today. Like, can I give valuable content for somebody a few times a week? Can I make sure that I'm working on my craft and the quality, and I'm enjoying the content that I'm putting out? That is those are intentional moments versus only focusing on the big goal. So ask yourself, check yourself with those things. Like, if you've just been focusing so much on goals instead of intentions, and then you see the reason why we need both. All right, think about that. All right, so you've probably seen it on the webinar, or some of my other teachings about the approach I want to take for the Get It Done Incubator. And if you watched the webinar, you did get the access to the life class True Brilliance, where I talk about the STEAM approach. All right, so I talk about the STEAM approach, and this is where I won't do a deep dive teaching on this today, because I've already talked about it in the webinar and you got the class on it. But I want to refresh your memory about this, and filter your goals and intentions through this process. And then, so as we go into laser coaching, I want you to identify an area that we need to address. And then if it's something I can give you as a strategy, great. But if it's something that's going to require like some coaching around, we'll save that for the elevated study halls if needed. So I want to say this again. This is not, and to remind you, this is not a coaching program, right? This is about you executing and getting the high level support you need. But just like in study halls, if you're with a professor or a tutor or with a group, like, and someone knows the content more than you, if you get stuck, we're gonna have to talk you through why you're stuck and give you support that way. So this is not, well, come on, let's just hold each other accountable, and then you are not achieving because you're stuck, and then you don't feel like you can ask questions. That is available to you, but this is not the typical coaching program, which are technically consulting programs, but that's another story. So yeah, all right. So S stands for skill. So for some of you, and just be honest with yourself, this is why some of this is not going to be aired out there, because I do want you to be honest. You may want to accomplish something. You may want to, I don't know, let's say write a book. All right, I'll say that. You may want to write a book, but you have no idea. Well, I will say that, because in 2020 I did a challenge. I think I forgot what it was called, but it was a writing challenge, and it led me to writing my book. Because I had to get some other people involved. Like, let's do this challenge during what happened in 2020, and I ended up writing my book from that, my second book from that challenge that I did. And so, but you may be wanting to know how to write a book, but you don't know all of the components of putting a book together. It's more than just putting words together. There's a formula and a format and things that you have to put in place. So just be honest with yourself. The one thing that's keeping you from writing the book is you don't know how to write. You don't have the skills to write the book. This is not saying you don't know how to write. That's not it. This is not to say that you're not smart, but there are just certain things you have to learn to write the book. You want to build a business, and part of building a business could be getting your back end systems together. And you're like, I don't even know what a funnel is. I don't even know how to set up the software or the email sequences or anything. And you've just been doing these random things. That's a skill issue, and it is okay. So be honest with yourself and say, what skills do I need to move forward? And you're probably saying, well, Vernita, I if I have the skills, no, if I didn't have the skills, why would I want to have this goal? Well, you don't know until you get into something. Like, it sounds great. Like, yeah, I want to start a business, and people say all I have to do is show up and give value, but then they don't talk about the marketing side. And you're like, oh crap, I don't know anything about marketing or how to present myself. So that's a skill you didn't know you needed until you got in. So don't beat yourself up. Remember the 3 agreements. Sometimes you get into something, you're like, oh, snap, I didn't know I needed. But celebrate yourself for having the courage to take the step to uncover what you need clarity about for your next step. A lot of times we're trying to, in our minds, go through all the scenarios to figure out what we need to have figured out before we take a step, and then we never take a step. You have to get into something so that something can be uncovered, so you can work on that, get the skills, the training, or whatever you need to move forward. All right. The next one is time. So I like to say time optimization over time management. You've heard me say that before. We're going to go through, as we're going through the elevated study halls, probably I'll send you something after the strategy day for you to put in place so that we can review it on for the next session. You're going to put something in place about time and where you've been allocating your time. So just like I did the mindset exercise of recalling or reclaiming your energy, you're going to reclaim your time. A lot of you have gotten into these coaching programs and they were like, well, we're going to help you get more time. But then you found yourself spending more time either avoiding the work or doing the work, but you didn't allocate the time to actually focus on the work. Okay, does that make sense? So let me say it this way. There are some programs where you get into it, the person is teaching you something, you're having these breakthroughs and ahas, you're going through the work with them, and then you think, oh, that's it. But then you haven't taken the time to actually implement the work. Take you back to school. You can sit in the professor's class all day. Yeah, I'm learning, I'm taking the notes, all that, great. But the good students, the best students, took extra time and read through the notes, went through what was covered or not covered to make sure they really got an understanding outside of the class. In college, when I was a college professor, we used to say for every 3 hours, no, every hour of the course takes an extra 3 hours. So if you're in a 3-hour course for the week, then you need to spend 9 hours gathering and learning and doing the work for that course. And you might say, oh, that's a lot. But if you really set up, so you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking like 15 hours. I got to do like 45 hours worth of work in a week. Well, for a lot of people, school was your job. So yes, but for everyone didn't take all that. But if you go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm learning, I set time apart to learn. Now I need to set time to actually execute. I had a coach, we went through some stuff. There's a lot in the personal development space. And it was like, okay, you listened to the Q&A, you watched the module. Now take an extra 90 minutes of your day right after this call and get the work done. That may not be feasible for all of you, but you can do 30 minutes right after the call or schedule the time. So optimize your time, and let's not use that as an excuse anymore, because like you find time for what you want to do. That's true. A last story. I had a friend, she makes me laugh about this all the time. We were on a girls' trip, and I was reading a book. I was like, oh, my background. All right, chill out now. Act right. I was on a girls' trip and I was reading, I'm a nerd game. And they're like, we're supposed to be having fun. And I was like, well, I was going to get some reading in. So my friend, she was like, well, I don't have time to read. And I was like, I just watched you literally for 15 minutes scroll on Instagram. And you mean to tell me you don't have time, you don't have 15 minutes to read? And she was like, oh man, you got me. So think about it. Where are those pockets of time that you can go back and reclaim and optimize? All right. The next one is E. Energy, similar to what that is going to bother me. All right, excuse me. All right, real life. All right, oh, still doing it. Well, it's a green screen back there, whatever. So energy, similar to what we did before, reclaiming your energy. That is a real thing. That's not woo-woo. That's not, whatever you think it is. People are like, well, that's not biblical. Yeah, it is. Like, go read the book of Proverbs. Don't be spending your energy in unnecessary places and then wonder why you don't have the energy to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. That's one thing. So reclaiming your energy, your mental energy and your physical energy. If you need to get your health together, work out, eat better, things like that, that's all part of why you may not be achieving your goal. Somebody was like, ouch. It's true. It's like, oh, well, I want to write this book. And of course, there are other examples, but that's the one that keeps coming to my mind. Probably because one of my get it done is to get this third book together. All right. So it's like, oh, I want to write, but I don't have time. But then it's like, well, okay, well, one thing to do is get up, an hour to 90 minutes earlier. But you can't do that is because you've been staying up late, or you're eating foods that are keeping you sluggish throughout the day. So you don't have any energy, you crash and burn, and then you're scrambling, getting up in the morning and rushing because you tossed and turned and just all those things. And you might be thinking like, what does that have to do with me not being able to accomplish my goal of writing the book? Because you're not allocating the time or optimizing the time where you could get up earlier, and that's because you don't have the energy, and that's because you haven't been setting yourself up with the right nutrition, the sleep, the exercise, whatever the case may be for you. The other part of energy is masculine and feminine energy, not male and female, but masculine and feminine. And I think I talked about this in the life class, but there are times when I believe we need both. The masculine energy where we got to dominate, we got to go get it, we got to go for it, because if we don't go for it, no one is going to hand it to us. That is partly true. But for a lot of us who are highly ambitious, that engine is always on. It's always go, 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 hunt, kill, take, right? But then there's another part of that where we do chill out, allow things to come, that ease and flow of receiving. And I guess you could think of it female and male, but it's not exclusively, the men go out and get, and then the woman allows things to receive. Like our bodies are literally meant to like receive, whatever, but I don't want you to focus on like all men do this way, all women. It's a lot of us women who have masculine energy, and it's not like a horrible thing. I believe God created that because we all need that, but then he also created to where it needs to operate in harmony and balance. And we have to know when to step on the gas and when to release and allow things. And God being God, he wants to show us. There are times when he will just send us. Elijah was out in the wilderness and he sent ravens to come feed him, like to receive. He didn't go out and hunt for the food all the time. The children of Israel, they didn't always go hunt. God allowed the manna to come. He allowed the quails to come. He allowed water to gush out of a rock to come to them. So there are times when it is okay to receive, allow ease and flow without always hustling. So that's another part of energy. All right. A is for ambition. All right, so remember, I want you I know you've heard this, but now that we've centered ourselves and we have our goal in mind with intentions and we understand the difference, now we can filter what we've been trying to accomplish, filtering it through this lens of STEAM, and we can pinpoint when we get to the strategy that you can laser focus your question or your thoughts, all right? Of where you may be getting stuck. Ambition. This is another reason why I wanted to make sure you had the safe space. If you want to have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're not even going to talk about a certain date because I learned that because it can be depressing. And I know some of you have shared that. It's like, oh man, I didn't accomplish my goal. Well, sometimes like let the date go. This is not to take yourself off the hook, but sometimes just don't focus on the date of getting something done. Focus on what you're doing every day. So let yourself off the hook. But I said that to say is like if you're like, oh, I want to have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of 2024, great. But then let's ease up off that and say, yeah, I want to have 100,000 subscribers, and that's great. Allow yourself to say that, but don't shrink and say, well, I'll be all right with 1,000 because someone may have said, ooh, no, let me reverse that. You want to say, I want to have 100,000 by December of 2023. Let me say it that way. And then it's like, okay, go for it. But then, somebody in the chat may say, what? Or you may see somebody's face. Like I literally saw somebody be like, and then you're like, well, no, just maybe 1,000. I want you to still keep that goal of having 100,000 subscribers by December. Look, the algorithm be algorithming. Algorithming. We don't know. I've literally watched people grow super fast based on what they wanted to accomplish. And that short amount of time, I've literally seen YouTube channels explode with that quantum growth rate, whether they know something, and that can go back to a skill. They know how to put things together, whatever the case may be, it is possible. So you keep that in mind, but then know that time and energy, you're going to have to show up like that person. There's just some things that you probably going to have to do at a faster rate, but don't shut down your goal because of a reaction, or you might think that's not, realistic. So what? So what? If you want to say that you want to have a $10 million a year business and you haven't even made 100,000, so what? Keep that goal of having, a $10 million a year business. So I want you to be as ambitious as possible. Think as big. Someone told me this, and I probably heard it from several people, so I can't really pinpoint where it came from, is that sometimes the reason why we haven't accomplished our goals is because they're too small. The one thing and I'm like, okay. So I'm starting to think about some things like when I earned my PhD, I finished it in 3 years. Normally it takes 5 to 7 years. But it was done because I was like, well, let's see if I can get this done in 3 years. I had one professor in my undergrad years before I even thought about getting a doctorate who said that's what she did. And it always stuck in my mind. If I was like, well, if I ever go do it, it's going to be in 3 years. Hey, why not? I didn't listen to people who said it may take 5 to 7 years to finish. Writing a book. I heard someone say that they wrote a book in 7 days, and they told me how they did it. And I was like, oh, well, they can do it. Let me write mine in 7 days. Now, I got the bulk of it done in 7 days, but it really took me 90 days to get it all done from concept to out on Amazon in 90 days. But because I heard someone say they got their whole book done in 7, I was doing what I could do, right? Another thing, this didn't come true, but when I was a college professor, it didn't come into reality. When I was a college professor, when I finally accepted, I'm like, okay, I'm here. One of my major professors in my program said it took her 14 years to gain tenure and become a full professor. And I was like, dang, 14 years. Damn, I got time for that, right? So then I was doing some research and I saw where somebody did it in 8 years. Now I won't get too much into it because if you're in higher ed, like 8 years is like that's a pretty ambitious goal to go from an assistant professor to a full professor with tenure in 8 years. To give you some context, they want is where my university was to be get promoted to an associate professor. It was a 5 year process. Well, technically 6 year process. So yeah, but I didn't do that because the Lord released me from being a professor. But I was working while I was there. I was going after things to make it in 8 years. Even if my university at the time was like, no, you can only you got to focus on this, and it's going to take you 6 to get there. In my mind, I was still working like that. So go ahead and be ambitious. Ambitious. Some of you, I may stretch your goals to where you're like, oh, I just want to do that. No, let's go bigger. All right. And then we'll work on how to help you meet that and close that gap versus you coming down because you may not, do that. Was it like, I think Les Brown said, if you shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon. Shoot for the, what is it? Shoot for the moon, land on the stars. One of them. If you go higher, the chances are whatever's underneath that, you at least fall back on that, right? All right, so then this is money. Money, money, money. So I put money and then mindset. I was working with someone who may become a potential client about something. We were talking about mindset and how mindset gets thrown around. You've heard me say mindset, but I've attached it to in some exercises, and I want you to think about your perspective. That's what mindset really is: your perspective about something, your thoughts about something, your beliefs about something, and how you start acting towards it, your values, all of that, and then helping you move toward what you say you want, right? That's how I view mindset. So your perspective, thinking higher, what's causing you to have these outdated beliefs about something? What can we shift in your mind so that you can let go of that and then move forward? Because our brains are designed to keep us safe. Our minds want, to live in theory and create these and imagine things, but our brain be like, whoa, hold on, simmer down. We got to let our brain know, like, hey, we're safe, that we don't need to have that thought or value or opinion about this anymore. So allow us to go meet the creative side of us. All right. I hope that makes sense. I just came up with that. So when it comes to money, and some people are like, well, I don't care about money. I heard Myron Golden say this. Have y'all heard of Myron Golden? Somebody put me onto him, and I've been watching him like every day. Somebody put me onto him like October last month, maybe the end of September. And I find something watching his every day. I think he's amazing. And it's just changed my approach to how I'm doing videos and different things like that, and then I've learned some skills, some time. I've done this myself, right? But he said, if you're working a job and you don't like your job or whatever, you may love your job. I think there are people who love their careers, but then you're like, well, I don't care about money. Then it's, well, why do you keep showing up to the job? Well, if you don't care about money, why go? It's not because you just simply love what you're doing, right? Because you need money to survive. And then you need money to thrive. Some of your goals, a lot of your goals, if they are really big and are for other people, you need money. You need resources to get these things out here. You need resources because if you don't have skill in one area, you may need to put some resources, either get the skill or hire somebody. You need resources. If you don't have time, you may need to pay somebody to do some of the things to free up your time, a personal assistant, get your meals delivered, somebody to watch your kids, somebody to cut the yard, something, but you need money. For energy, if you just need to go for your mental health, you need to go to a spa day, to go on a fishing trip, whatever it is, or to get the right food for the nutrition or personal trainer, whatever it is to get your energy back, or to create the space and freedom to allow ease and flow, right? You need money. For ambition, that goes back to the goal. If you want to start an orphanage or create a safe place for women who've been in domestic violence situations or whatever, you need, as big as your goal is, you need money to support that, because where you are, you cannot do it. your job, even the best job, is a cap and it is not enough. I don't care how much you save. And this is another thing that Myron Golden said, and it changed my perspective about things. And it was like, oh, I don't want to get involved in get rich quick schemes. And he was like, why not? Why do you want to get rich slow? And not take out the scheme part, but we get rich quick, and we're like, oh. And he was like, well, why do you want to get rich slow when you have things you need to accomplish? So a lot of times while we're not executing, it's because we're like, in our mind, let me tell you, it doesn't have to make sense. I think I used to do is try to rationalize my thoughts of to why I did something, why I did something, why did I have this thought? It doesn't matter. The thought accomplished what it was going to do, right? The little doublet did what it's supposed to do to get you distracted, to get you sidetracked so that you don't do anything. So you're like, well, it doesn't make sense why I, don't care about, say, I don't care about money when I want to have this dream. Why am I thinking about that? Well, let me go back in my childhood and figure out, well, what kept me there? Now, some of you may disagree, but that's okay because we're in a safe space. And I hope my rambling, my tangent makes sense because right now I'm like, I don't even know what I said because I got so excited about that. Sometimes when you have the awareness of the thought, sometimes it's enough just to acknowledge it and release it. Oh, that's what I've been thinking. To get rich quick. I know I want to make a lot of money, but I used to be like, oh, I don't want to be involved in something get rich quick because that sounds like a scam. When I heard what he said, I was like, you know what? Exactly. Why do I want to get rich slow? I acknowledge that. I let it go. And now I'm more, we cleared that. I felt some brain matter, releasing my mind. I was like, okay, now we can go after some things. I don't need to go back into my childhood or my early adulthood to see where I had this aversion of get rich quick schemes. Now, for some people, you may need to do that. You have to be the judge. But I think sometimes, especially in the area of life coaching, we think that we have to take clients way back there to release some things to bring them up to where they are now and to move forward. But sometimes it's like when you take me way back, I done got stuck. Now that's a distraction because now I'm focusing on this issue. If you really need to resolve that, go to a therapist, a counselor. That's what they're trained for. But don't come to your coach thinking that, well, for most of us, like me, I'm not going to take you back. I want you to acknowledge it. Now that you've gotten that awareness, now let's move forward and put that new thought. Like we've taken out that thought, we've acknowledged it, like, oh, snap. But now we can put in a new thought. I want to get rich quick because I have some dreams and goals that need to be accomplished so I can better serve other people with my gifts and talents. All right. Is that landing? Are you tracking? Act like you the cameraman. Follow me. Camera woman. Follow me. All right. So money. We need money. Money does make the world go round. I don't care how much money. Think about the money. Here's another thing. We'll probably do a session on this later on. But so this is where ambition can also be a little tricky, and this is why you need to do some work. If you're saying I want to make $10 million a year in my business, great. I love that for you. But I also want you to work on your mindset to get you there and say, well, what would I do with $10 million a year? How would I spend this money if it came to me? Because a lot of us think that we want certain things, but then we're not prepared to handle those things, right? So if you're like, I want this particular sports car, like I want a certain car. But then I was like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. This is how much the maintenance is going to cost. Wait a minute, the maintenance costs that much to get the oil changed? Okay, well then what do I need to put in place to make sure I can afford that to get that done versus, oh, well, never mind, I don't want that. But at least I know going in the responsibility. If you're talking about you want $10 million a year, you can't be like, but I'm going to save $9 million. I'm going to spend, I know how to spend $1 million, but I'm going to save $9 million. Honestly, there's only so much saving you can do. Money doesn't like to just be saved. Money likes to flow. It is currency. It has to move. So a lot of us probably don't have the income we want because money is like, I don't trust you. I don't think you're gonna know what to do with me when I get there, or you're gonna stuff me inside the mattress or stuff me inside the bank and leave me there when I got better things to do. All right. So be honest with yourself. Go sit down. I also had this with a money mindset coach. She was like, go spend money. If you were gonna make this amount of money in a year, literally write out a plan for it. What would you do? And then so that's when I would do the exercise, and that's when I realized I need to up my income to live a certain way. And this is not even like lifestyle of the rich and famous. This was like some of the things I want to do, some of the things, I want to make sure I have in place for my grandmother, put in place for future kids, just for my own sanity, things I want to do. I was like, there is no way I could have lived this life on my salary. Right. So I literally need to get this business on and popping. All right, so we'll do some work on that. I see some of your faces. That's probably one of the first workshops we will do. And I'll give you some tools for you to implement with that. All right, so we've been on it for a while. If you need to, go ahead and take a break, and we will be right back for the strategy part. All right. All right. Welcome back. Did you get something to eat? You stretched? Let this all sink in. I know you're probably thinking, like, I thought we were just going to jump into the strategy. I had to get your mind right. I had to get you in a good place. All right. So remember the worksheet I sent you to pre-work, the goal setting worksheet. I'm not going to go through everything, uh, but I'm going to give you, to remind you of some high level things. We talked about, how to embrace your grit for greatness. Yes, that's the name of my book. But seriously, remembering a lot of the things that you've done in your past experiences, in your past life or past accomplishments, you carry that same energy. You carry that same, work ethic. And that way, that's how you technically can get this next thing done, because technically you've done it before. You've been in a place where you had to use that grit to get it done. Your new goals and things are no exception. So on your goal sheet, it said narrow it down to 1 year, but I want you to focus on your right now. Like, what can you accomplish in the next 12 weeks? And I be ambitious, say by the end of this year. So let's just go ahead and do that. Even though we're going to go into January, what can you accomplish in the next few weeks that we have together? So if it's I want to have a kid, let's this is where we do get realistic. Like, I mean, can you get pregnant in this time? Yes, but to fully deliver a kid right now, I believe God does miracles, but I don't think he's going to do that one because it's just like, I'm not doing that. Jesus didn't come in an instant, so why you think you special? Don't come for me for that, but you know what I mean. Like, come on, like I'm all for let's go big or go home, but let's make sure that we can actually accomplish some things. So, can it write a book? Can you raise a certain amount of money in a short amount of time? Now, if you're like, I want $1 billion by December, I'm not saying it's impossible. I did a post not too long ago when we talking about leading up to this, where Elon, I was about to call him Tesla, when what Tesla did, but Elon, I think he lost 220 billion, something with the billion. That money was gone. They're like, well, where is the billion? that somebody, it didn't just drop off the face of the planet. Those billions went somewhere, right? So I'm not saying that you couldn't get a windfall. Like it could really come your way. Like some businesses are making $1 billion a day in the industry. So I'm not saying it's not impossible, but there's a level of energy, like real energy and divine alignment that has to take place. But if it's uh um, I'll leave it to you. Let's not get so ridiculous to where we know our energy can't match it. I'll leave it at that. If your energy can't match it, don't ask for it. I'm not even stressed. So like if it's 100,000 by the end of this year, and you're like, oh man, I haven't made 10. Your energy, I think you can align to and get behind, especially some strategies we're going to talk about to get you to that point. All right. If it's weight release and you're like, I want to release 100 pounds, come on now. Now, if it's 30, there are some things you can put in place. So I want you to think about that. So that's what I'll talk about, embracing grit. Let's go narrow it down, but you can still give yourself some wiggle room for January. Then I want you to really get into the energy of asking, believing, receiving, then gratitude. Gratitude is not overrated. Gratitude and appreciation, you can find mostly every successful person, whether that's success in money, fame, or whatever it is that you deem successful, gratitude shows up. But I'm going to ask you, this is not in the worksheet, but also add appreciation, because appreciation and gratitude are different. And I think both are needed. And that does help you quantum leap. And then we talked about the different categories, life experiences, evolution, and contribution. Part of that comes from like Mind Valley. I kind of tweaked it a little bit. I think I changed that to life progression. So I may have to update that worksheet. I did go, on the worksheet, because you can save this for later. We're not going to focus on all 12 of those areas because of one time, but two, I want you to be laser focused because we're going to get things done in a short amount of time. So you can fill that out on your own. Some of you have already done that, but for the purpose of the Get It Done Incubator experience and what we're going to talk about over our elevated study halls, I want you to be focused on one, maybe two, but one. All right. And skip. So then this is what this next session is about, is clarity. Now we've heard of SMART goals. Sometimes SMART goals are not so smart, but you still need to be specific. It still needs to be measured, and you still need to have a time frame. I like the 12-week year approach. You'll hear me talk more about that later on. But there's part of SMART goals I like, as part that I don't, but I do still think they need to be specific, measurable, and time bound. A lot of times I think if you have not accomplished the goals you want to accomplish because either it wasn't specific enough, you didn't have a way to track your progress, and then either your time frame was too tight or you did not have a time period at all. We talked about a mission goal versus a position goal. You can read that on your worksheet because those two are different. I think if you understand the type of goal, then that helps you align with your intention, and then that helps you align with the action that you need to take. So just be honest with yourself. If it is a position goal where, you want more money, power, fame, be honest with yourself. It's like, okay, be real. But if you want 100,000 YouTube subscribers and you're like, oh, I just want to get my message out there. But realistically, you want it because there is something, you want the play button. There's something about having that number of subscribers and beyond. Be real. Say that. It is okay. So while we created a safe space, you have to keep that safe space with you and tell yourself the truth. All right. So for one of your goals, if you have not done it, take this time as I'm going through this, and as I'm working with other people, make sure yours is filled out. So the more that you're dialed into what you want to ask me, then the more strategy I can provide you and have a plan for us to move forward. Okay. For those of you that just showed up just for today, hopefully you get yours done first, because I want to make sure that you get your plans and things together, because you will not be with us during the elevated experiences. If you want to upgrade to that after you hear all of these great things, feel free to do that. I'll make sure I have the link down below. But if you're like, no, I just want to get my strategy, I'm pretty good with, executing, but I just still need some help, then I want to make sure that I get you in, because this is our last interaction after today. So you got the pre-work, you got this work, and you will only get like the one thing after the post work. You won't get everything else. So make sure that you raise your hand. Do not wait to the end. All right. Then we talk about identifying your roadblocks. That is what's going to come up. If you don't have any roadblocks, then you can ask me specifically what could be a roadblock, and we'll have some dialogue around that. But the more you can get out of what you can do on your own, the more dialed in we can be during our session. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it over and over. It's like, you are your first coach, right? You are your first coach. You know yourself. Coaches don't give you the answers, right? But we can uncover things, but you have to do some of the work. I believe, like, if you come in and, okay, I don't know why this idea came to my mind. If you go get your hair styled, and excuse me, men, come up with your own story. But it's like, if you go to someone and you're like, you know what, I'm on a time crunch. Let me go ahead and wash and blow dry my hair so that way the braider can come in and just braid their hair. All right, cool, because you're going to get the service much quicker if you already have some pre-work. Versus if you go into the salon and you need somebody to wash your hair, condition your hair, blow dry your hair, prep it, trim it, and then put your braids in, that's going to be a longer amount of time. Now, are there some people who can do it done in a short amount of time? Absolutely. But you know yourself, if you're like, I don't really care about the extra services, I really care about the speed it's going to take you to put these braids in my hair. I don't care if I got to wash and blow dry it myself. Cool. So when it comes to coaching in that sense, I believe, do some of the work yourself first and then show up. So that way we can get to the actual problem or the actual concern, instead of spending so much time trying to do some groundwork. That's where you go for one-on-one. That's where you go for longer extended, programs, if that's what you want. Retreats are good for that because that's longer and things like that. So I'm putting it out there. All coaches may not tell you, but I'm telling you. All right. So work on why you haven't reached your goal. And then, yeah, just answer that question, why you think you may not have reached your goal. And then on the worksheet, we talk about the 80-20% rule. 80% of the reasons I'm not achieving my goal comes from internal sources, me. Only 20% are from external. This is why I had you go back and talk about that circle of, what did I call it? Circle of influence. I hope I said it right the first time. Circle of influence, or circle of control. What can I control here in my bubble? Me, what am I going to take ownership of and be responsible for, versus everything on the outside and blaming outside when that's only 20% of really what matters. So it's like, I'm telling you to tighten your circle, but that's really 80% of the work. And the things that look big and that's on the outside of the circle, it looks bigger, but that's really only 20%. So again, it could go into any one of these. And then if it's fear, let me go ahead and address that right now, because I really don't want anyone to come up here and say, oh, I'm just afraid. One, so what if you're afraid? You've done things that you've been afraid of before and you still got things done. So if it's not putting you in immediate danger, if you're not gonna die at the end of it, I don't want to hear I'm afraid. You can say of people judging me, of people laughing at me, not even afraid, but I'm concerned about those things. Those are in the forefront of my mind. We can talk about that, but no one gets to come up here and say, oh, I'm just afraid to do that. I need you to drill down. So I'm telling you now, drill down. All right. So we're going to do that. You have room to go back and do all of these, but for the purpose of now and for the incubator, focus on one. Then again, we're going to talk about some things that are going to push us forward. I'll give you some strategies around that. And then through the elevated study hall sessions, we will brainstorm, but it's probably going to be in these areas as well. Some things that you need to identify, like, oh yeah, I might need to tighten up my skill. Oh yeah, I might need to put the time in place. Then we are going to talk about benchmarks. And I'll talk about that towards the end after both. So how many of you? I'll still break up the sessions. So I'll talk about the benchmarks and how we're going to approach that at this after the second laser session. All right, so all right, then we'll come to the end of that after we do that. Let me see, where are we on the agenda? All right, so the first session, and all right, YouTube land, you will not be here for that. We'll bring you back after we have some conversations, but I'll give you a heads up so you'll know that this isn't just specific to anyone. We have some people in real estate, we have some people who are starting businesses, we have some people in the publishing space, we have people who want to write, get their first books done, we have people who want to figure out why they are not releasing weight. And so you're probably thinking like, well, you don't have an expertise in all of those areas. That's why go watch my video. Remember I showed y'all the video of life coaching or generalist or not, but it's more beneficial if your life coach has a lot of experiences, have a lot of experience and resources where I can help direct you. And sometimes it's not about what you, the answer that you're seeking, the solution that you're seeking may not always be what you think it is. All right. And then we have some people who want to grow different types of businesses, want to branch out in certain businesses. And then let me see, yeah, pretty much the same. Some people that like, look, I just need to get this program up and running, this course. Yeah, okay. So that's just give you a heads up of what we're going to be dealing with, and then I'll come back. Trying to think. No, I won't show these actual strategy sessions. For those of you who are watching, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's 3 videos that are up. The Brilliant Power Hour, it has its own playlist. You can watch those videos to kind of get an idea of how I coach people through deep coaching and then offering strategy that way. Or you can sign up and work with me. All right, so we'll be back. All right. Hi, people. Welcome back to, we've been having a good old time. I had to go get me some grapefruit sparkling water. All right. Whew, that was a lot. I went in with some people, and yeah, so I had to come back and gather myself. I am used to going long for when my teaching day, so I guess I've been prepared for this. So it's all good. It's all good. So what we came up with, some people have gotten some great things, some uh, great steps for great strategies for their next steps. And then we uncovered some things for some people as to why they haven't been moving forward. So with some people, oh, my lips, excuse me. For some people, it's not going to take them until January to accomplish their goal. They're going to get the goal done, before the year is out, which is great. Sometimes we just need to be in that space. Uh, yeah. So what came up now, we're at the end of what's happening. I know it's been a long day for us, but not really a long day for you all watching this, right? So what came up is now we're going to talk about accountability versus ownership and responsibility. And this is why I like the 12-week year approach. So we talked about accountability. Well, I'm going to tell you, and this is what I learned it as, because in a lot of programs, it's like, you need somebody to hold you accountable. I want to be in accountability groups. And from my experiences, I've had a lot of accountability groups, and they just fall off after these programs or after retreats. They don't do so great, or they just turn out to be like, oh, I just got some new friends and things like that. But I think when I learned this, the approach to accountability has been wrong. And when we hear accountability, it sounds like, well, uh, you can't hatch or do what you are supposed to do. You can't. I don't even know the word I'm trying to say. It's like you can't cut it, so you need somebody to help you cut it. And it sounds bad. Like, oh man, what's wrong with me? But accountability is really about ownership and responsibility. That's why I talked about focus on what you can control. Why did you sit down on yourself? What was something about the goal that you did not accomplish the first time where you had control over it? Like, be responsible, be honest of something that you can do. Like, you can't control the algorithm, and being accountable. You can't hold the algorithm accountable, but you can take ownership and responsibility of the time you put in, the effort that you put in, the quality that you put in. You can do things like that. So accountability, if you take it out of somebody else holding me accountable, you switch in your mind that accountability is about you taking ownership and responsibility for yourself. So I don't want you to think for these the elevated study calls, it's like, well, I'm just going because I need somebody to hold me accountable. I am providing that time and space for you to execute. So that goes back to help you with that time part. For some of you, like, oh, I just don't have time. We're going to have the dedicated amount of time. But then you are showing up. It's like, I owe myself this time, and I owe myself and I'm responsible for doing the tasks that need to be done to reach the goal that I want to reach. Those are the intentions. So if it's like I want to write the book, then I owe myself to show up and do the work during that set amount of time. And then I'm responsible for, am I writing a chapter a day, or how many words am I writing per day? Or the book is finished now, I'm going to go get the editor. Like, I'm putting the steps in place, of the things that you need to get it done. And that's why I call it the Get It Done Incubator experience. So take out accountability. It's almost like when we were in school, a lot of us did our homework. One, because the teacher or professor was going to check it. Two, we wanted the good grades to come out of that. But then it was like, even with the teacher or professor or knowing about the grades, we still had to do the work. We had to write the paper, read the book, study, build a thing, whatever the case was. So we had to take ownership and responsibility. And then the accountability was because it was kind of built in. We were, you want to finish the semester, you want to finish the class, the professor's going to give you the feedback or the mark. But even with that, there are people who still didn't do the work because they didn't take the ownership and they weren't responsible. So I like this part. I think, what is this? Okay, so they said, I took this from the 12-week year. They were saying it's like, it's impossible to hold someone else accountable. And then they say, I like the joke, like you can hold the baby, you can hold a bag of groceries, but you can't hold someone accountable. Accountability is not consequences, but ownership. It's a character trait, a life stance, a willingness to own your actions and results regardless of the circumstance. This is why the incubator is in a compressed amount of time, because sometimes, like if you got too much, then you allow life to life. But even though we can't fully control life, but if we are going in focused, like I only have this much amount of time, we can be responsible for the most part how much life we allow to get in because we don't have room. That's just what I think. All right. So, and then this part about ownership is about initiative. Accountability is about follow through. That's why I like that as well. So don't just think about accountability as someone's going to give this to me, but I'm going to take the initiative to get started, and then I am going to follow through to make sure I get it done. This formula here, I did this on a video before. Life coach plus inner work equals outer results. We will have some of that inner work, that mindset. The mind, 6 inches could be so powerful between our heads. And then have someone to navigate you through. And when you amplify that, your results get exponentially big, the outer results of what you want to accomplish. That's why I want to be in this incubator, in this contained space. So it's like you have me. Not only am I here to give you strategy, but I also know how to help you uncover and unblock what's in your mind, and then to bring you back to taking ownership and responsibility, taking the initiative and following through. Anytime a roadblock that we wrote on the goal sheet comes up, let's work through that, because at the end of the day, you're taking ownership and you're being responsible. You're taking the initiative. Oh, this bobble came up. Let me go talk this out and work this through, so that way I can follow through and be responsible. So that way, if I keep doing it, I get to execute. Another thing that I liked about the 12-week year and why we are laser focused on that is because I like when they do the scorecards. And it's like, we have these goals and a lot of us haven't executed because we haven't done like this one little part of tracking, progress monitoring. That's why a lot of us were so good in school. And you can say, oh, they didn't teach me anything. But if you got a degree, then you accomplished something. They gave you a set of assignments and tasks to do. I bet you check those off to make sure you got to the next step. But then when it comes to life, we stop having we do to-do lists. And if you look in my office, I got a lot of to-do lists, but the to-do list or the tasks that are going to get us to the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. So a to-do list of, I woke up this morning, I worked out, I organized my desk, I did this, that, and the other, went grocery shopping, I did, okay. But if your goal is to finish your book, that to-do list has nothing to do with you writing the book. I got up, my desk was already organized. I wrote, 10,000 words today. I contacted the editor. I'm looking for a publisher. I know where I want to put the book. I got the cover designer. Those are the things that are going to move you forward. So scorecard versus to-do list, those are the things that we're going to talk about when we at our kickoff for the elevated study sessions, elevated study hall. It's been a long day. Okay, elevated study halls, right? So that goes back to ownership and responsibility. All right, looking at the agenda. Whew. All right, so the way someone asked me, and I can put this on video, how the elevated study halls work. I learned this from a business coach I had, and at first I was like, this is dumb. But I was like, this makes sense. So there were times where there was content to learn. We had some mindset work to do. And then in that week, we also had time to just sit and do the work. Like if it was to write out your 5 emails for your funnel, then that's the time you sit there and write your emails. If you had a question about the emails, even though she did a lesson on that or she did a session on that, you could still ask questions. If you had to put your sales page together and you had the class earlier, you couldn't find time to do it, well, then today we're going to do it. Saturday was the day. She had them twice a week, but right now I'm just trying out once a week. We'll see how it goes. and then you sit there and do it. After I got out of that program, when I was with an accountability group, I suggested that. I was like, hey, let's come together, let's go through, because there is a formula that you can start off with having an accountability group. But then I was like, well, let's add on execution and implementation days. Well, I didn't call it execution. I was like, well, let's do take action days. And we would sit there for 2 hours and do some work. Like if you wanted to do your social media post for a month, well, let's sit here, click clack. And then some people are like, oh, that's a waste of time. But I stuck with it and I got a lot of stuff done. So I was like, that's a part that's missing. Everyone doesn't need that, but some people do. So that's really what it is. But so it's elevated because you're not just sitting with your peer group, you're sitting with someone who can give you input on the strategy that she, i.e., me, gave you. But you're also in that energy of like-minded people. People are going in the same direction, people who know the STEM the formula format, whatever you want to call it. And then other people who may be in different spaces, they can offer you input. So it's a little bit of a mastermind at times, but it's not going to be so much up in the clouds of, oh, that's a great idea, because you can put that in the pen, but we're going to execute. So I do love the different opinions that are probably going to come in and the different ideas. But if it's an idea that's not going to move you forward on the actual goal that you have in place, then you just need to put that in your notebook somewhere and focus. But I do think that is a bonus part of being in a curated group. What else? Yeah, we will have a way to check progress. So my professor-ish training is coming out to where, like, all right, last week you said you were going to do this. What's the problem? Or what are your actual tasks that you're going to focus on for the following week? Part of it, yeah, accountability, like show me, but then something that you're going to take ownership and responsibility over. The times, we'll make sure we have that settled with majority of the group. No, those will not be recorded because they may mostly be in silence. And then anything else that's going to come up. Remember, I told you all part of it is I think I call them lounge and learns. So one will be about money mindset. And then if I see, I already got a lot of people talking about books. I know someone or a few people in that industry who publish, who write, and all of that. I'll bring them in so you have a different perspective so that everything is not coming straight from me. I have no problems doing that because just like in college, you didn't learn everything from one professor, you have multiple. So I am cool with that. If it's a workshop that I can lead, cool. But even if I can lead it, but I think it would be better hearing it from someone else, I have no problem bringing that person in. All right. Okay. So we got that out of the way. And now we're going to put the value that you got out of this full day. It wasn't the 8 hours because it didn't take that amount of time, but it was still a long day. I appreciate you for taking your time out on a Saturday to do this process with me. I have not done something like this since 2020, but even then, yeah, I haven't done something like this since 2020, but it was never like this involved. It was, all right, let's come on, let's get together, right? So thank you so much for trusting me to guide you through this process and for showing up and using your time. Go ahead and put your value, what you got from today in the chat. And then we will wrap. Some of you I'll see if I can get some of the strategy part to you, but I took notes and you all took notes and I can remember what I said to you. Some of you had an audio recorded, so share that. All right. Yeah, that assessment, the Brilliant Identity Assessment, we'll talk more about that when we get into the study halls, and I'll show you how the results from that assessment impacts and influences your goals and your intention. All right, so someone says the value for today was they got an actual plan and not just sitting, that's not just sitting on a vision board, right? And so, yeah, you have books that are up there, you have, a certain amount of money, you would have this course started and it looks real good on your vision board, but now you have some plan, a strategy, like this is what I need to do to get it done, or this is what I have not done that I'm going to put in place to get it done, right? Feel like I finally don't have to do this alone. Yes, I have been hearing that even though people have been in coaching or consulting programs, yeah, you had a group, but once it's over, the group is over, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? It probably took you the 12 weeks to wrap your mind around the belief that you can do it, going through all the mess, learning it, getting your life together, and now all of that in place. Now you're finally ready to show up, and it's like, what, program over? So, yes, you do not have to do this alone. I love the specific strategies for different people. I can see how I can use different ideas and people, different ideas and people. Oh, okay. I can see how I can use different ideas. And then people even ask questions that I didn't think of. That is the power of having a like-minded community. I think that's overused a lot. I heard someone else say people like us, able to think that far out or even ahead of us. I love not being the smartest person in the room, and that's not always about titles or positions. Just what I experiences to where they asked something, and I was like, oh man, I didn't even think of that. So I'm glad this person asked, and being in that environment that also relates to energy. That same energy also allows for quantum leaps and quantum growth as well. This reminds me of school, but in a good way. I know what to do, when to do, and how to do it. Just being honest, some of us need that. And I think some people have gotten so far away of, you don't need a degree and your degree might have been a waste of time. But what it taught a lot of us is that, look, this is how I've been trained all my life. Apparently it worked for me. Now I need it, because showing up once a month just ain't gonna do it. Some people that's enough for them, but for a lot of us, initially we need to get back to what we know, like TLC. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Listen to the rhythms and the lakes that you're used to. Sometimes you need that. If it takes you like every week for something, and it may not be all your life, but then there are some people, that's why they pay high levels of support. Like why some coaches, you know, their investment is where it is, because I know for me, and I'm just be honest, I have coaches, and there are times when I'm like, look, y'all be with these groups. I can't. I need you. Like when I need you, I need this one-on-one time, and this is how much it is. Cool, because it's a reason why I want to go to the professor's office, or during their study, their office hours, because all I know is in the class. I can't. I need this right here. All right. So know yourself. So that owns up be true. All right. All right. And then the last one. Thanks for challenging my thinking and not letting me settle for where I was. It's tough to get called out, but I appreciate it. You're so welcome. I would be doing you a disservice if I allowed you to settle. My job is to stretch you, but not to stress you. I can hear low level thinking when I hear it. And part of my gifting, I believe God has given me, is to stir up gifts that's already inside of you. And if you tell me that's what you desire, then we're going to go for it. But if I know that there's something in there and I can sense it and I can feel it, my intuition, Holy Spirit is telling me is something else there, then it would be irresponsible of me to just let you say, well, if that's where you feel comfortable, I at least have to acknowledge that is something greater inside, but it's your job to accept it. So I thank you for saying that. And I thank you for not taking it out of context. It's all love here. All right. So, yeah, that is it. I want to just end the day similar to how we started. So much has happened. I know on the video for the replay, it's going to be like, oh man, that was quick. But for those of us who were here live, it has been a day. Come back, center yourself. And even if you're watching this, even the information that you receive, the sound fast paced, I want you to ground yourself as well. Breathe in, breathe out. Do that a few times, all right? So now I want you, uh, now that you're back on fire, you're motivated again, you're inspired. We're not going to let this fizzle out. One reason why it is 12 weeks because motivation typically fizzle out at the 12-week/90-day mark. So this is enough time for you to get your stuff done, get it done while you're still on fire. But I also want you to take this time and to visualize where you would be in the next 90 days. You've done exercises that take you 20 years out, 10 years out. I think a lot of us are great with those visions. That's why a lot of us are in the careers we have, the families we have, or even the businesses we have, because it used to be a 10, 15, 20-year dream. But I think where a lot of us get tripped up is like, well, what can I do in a short amount of time? This is where you can visualize that for yourself. Get it into your body, get it into your cells. Because if you can really feel it in your mind, and this is biblical and it is practical, if you see it in your mind first and you truly believe it, one, knowing that God gave you the desire to have it, and two, okay, I can partner with God so I can have it. Let me see what that feels like in the reality of it. What does it look like, smell like, feel like? When I was writing my second book, I did print off the paper cover. It was like the prototype, and I put it on another book from another author that I had admired at the time. And I would see it. I'm like, oh, this is a reality. Like it felt like a reality before it was here, and then it actually turned into an actual reality. Same thing with when I purchased my first home. I remember my mom used to take us through these neighborhoods and saying this is where you could live. Now little me came in, I was like, oh, I don't know if I could be there, so let me just dream about these types of houses. And even I don't judge my mind for where it was because that's where I was, but at least I was still dreaming about a type of home I wanted, the way it looked, even the type of street, and it happened. So holding on to that evidence, now I can anchor myself with what my mom showed me, being grateful for where I am now, but knowing that, oh, I can have that because this was this was just a thought, then it turned into reality. So it does work. Think about what happened for you. Like I named two tangible things. Everything started off as an idea and it became reality. Your job, your family, your career, your car, uh, your weight. you know, just think about things that were in your mind, and now that they are reality. Why can't you do the same for your current goal that you have in mind? So have that vision, hold it, let it go through your cells, let it turn real for you. The moment that you feel that chill, those goosebumps, I believe it has already happened in the spiritual realm. Now we just have to take the intentional steps in the physical realm for it to show up in reality. All right. So, yes, there may be some more things that come up. That's great. Whatever comes up, let it come out. Even if you have to talk about them, there will be space for that during our elevated study hall, because the goal is for you to get it done and to have a great experience while you're doing that. In my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, plug, I talk about endurance and resiliency, not about just getting to the end goal or just bouncing back, but you're building a certain character along the way. Because if you keep going through and accomplishing these goals and it's like, oh gosh, that was hard, that was draining, then your mind is going to be like, well, why do I want to keep accomplishing goals if that's how we're going to feel? So we change the experience that we have as we're going after the things that are literally going to change the world in some way, then I believe that we'll start executing and accomplishing things much faster. All right. So thank you so much. For those of you who only came for the strategy day, thank you for gracing us with your presence. This will be the end of our journey for now, unless you decide to upgrade, or I will see you on the other side for something else, maybe the live event that's coming up. For those of you who are in the full experience, I will see you on our elevated study session, study hall, as we continue this work. And for those of you who are watching this on the replay, if you missed it this round, no worries. I hope there's something that you can gain from just the little nuggets that I dropped here to share with you. And then to know that you can still get in contact with me on other ways to work with me, or you can check out my book, that's a framework, or you can get the free life class that I mentioned at the beginning. For people who watched the webinar, you don't have to watch the webinar to get it. It was just an incentive for people to do that, but it is also available to you. The link will be down below. All right, so that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for allowing me to pour out into you and to be able to stir up the gifts inside of you. And wherever you are, whether it's at the beginning of your day or at the end of your day, remember to be well, to be empowered, to be bold, and to be brilliant. Until next time. Bye.